In this video, we will explore how certain laws of physics can relate to American football. As you can see in this clip, the player is currently at the 10-yard line. After he crosses the 10-yard line, it takes him approximately 10 seconds to go the remaining distance, even though he slows down a bit at the end. Alright, so now we are going to find the speed of the player. So we'll be using the equation speed equals distance over time. The player, he runs approximately 90 yards in about 10 seconds. So if we divide and use that equation, we will find that he actually runs approximately 9 yards per second. And if we multiply that and find out how much it is in kilometers per hour, we'll find that it's 25 kilometers per hour. The next property of physics we will explore is force. Since football is a contact sport, this means that these hits are perfectly legal and you will not get flagged or fined for these hits. This next video is of the same person running through a solid door. And I basically had to use this video because it was the only way of accurately measuring how much he accelerates by, so yeah, that's that. Alright, so the next thing we'll do is find how much force he exerts onto the door. We will be using the equation force equals mass times acceleration. Since the player starts 4 meters away from the door and he makes contact with it in approximately 1 second, he accelerates at 4 meters per second. The next thing we will do is find his mass, and according to ESPN Player Bio, he approximately weighs 250 pounds. So to find the force, we will multiply 4 meters per second and 250 pounds. So that gives us approximately 1,000 pounds of force. And the only reason why he doesn't break like his bones on the door and whatnot is because the football pads help reduce the impact by 50%. So really he's exerting approximately 500 pounds of force onto the door. The next thing I'll be talking about in football is momentum and mainly collisions regarding momentum. For this first example, this is when the ball carrier and the tackler have the exact same momentum. And as you can see, neither of them move. This is just another close-up angle, and you can clearly see that the momentum is nearly the same. The second type of collision happens when the ball carrier has more momentum than the tackler. This means the ball carrier will continue to move forward while the tackler is stopped. The third type of collision is when the ball carrier has less momentum than the tackler and the ball carrier is sent flying backwards, as seen in this clip. So in conclusion, the three types of collision and momentum is when the ball carrier has the same momentum as the tackler, the ball carrier has more momentum than the tackler, and this one when the ball carrier has less momentum than the tackler. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to be talking about in the NFL is injuries. And the main injury I will focus on is concussions. A concussion is caused by helmet-to-helmet hit between two players. Now, in this following example, you can see that the green arrow points to a person going to the right, while the blue arrow points to a person going left, and they will collide headlong. This is what happens when this happens. And again, this is another example of a player running directly into another player with his helmet. And this is basically another example in slow motion. As you can see, there are, and of course there are side effects of this. As you can see in this play, the player actually gets knocked out and loses the ball. So some of the side effects that he will get when he wakes up are, some of the side effects that he will see when he wakes up is that he will have mainly a headache, he'll have nausea, and feeling stunned or dazed or extremely dizzy. But that is not the main reason why the NFL is afraid for its NFL players. According to a report by the St. Petersburg Times, for every single year you spend in the NFL, you will live at least 3 years less. Now, this is a bit top-heavy and skewed for the beginning years, but another statistic that they have is that if you spend more than 4 years actively playing in the NFL, you will live to be only 55 years old. Now, this is a big difference since the average American male does live to 75. But this statistic is actually a bit misleading because they have taken numbers from players that lived in like the 1920s when obviously the life expectancy was a lot lower. Now, I believe this is the fact that athletes do not choose to tell their trainers or the coaches when they suffer a concussion, for they lose money and the fans, they don't want to see this. Now, the real risk in concussions is having a second one right after you. This means if you sustain a concussion from a sport, choose to ignore it before your brain has enough time to heal and suffer another concussion. You are highly susceptible to have brain damage. One of the main things the NFL has done to lower the rate of concussions is to come up with every year better helmets. Now, in the 1920s, they first came out with the soft leather style. Now, before the 20s, almost nobody wore helmets. And you didn't have to, and you didn't actually have to wear helmets until the 1930s and 40s. As you can see, in the 30s, they reinvented this once again, but it was still leather. In the 40s, they had hard leather. They came up with a chin strap, and this is when they made all players wear the helmets. And in the 50s, this is when the real modern day plastic helmets that you see on players today. And this yet to have like a face mask or anything. In the 60s, this is when they start adding the face mask, as you can see here. This is when they add little air bladders inside to add as cushions and more. So it's not like the NFL is just sitting by and doing nothing. It has many rules to protect the players in the sport. It is against the rules now today to lead a tackle with your head, to protect players from helmet first hits to their heads and necks. They have also changed it so when wide receivers or the people that catch the balls, the defensive players must allow the receivers with the ball to defend themselves from a tackle before they can get blasted. There are also various other rules called unnecessary roughness or roughing the passer, which protect players from going too far, otherwise they'll get a penalty.